G'day guys and welcome to the Centre Bounce for my video where I'm going to be talking to you about my trades, my final trades. I'm locking them in this week, my captaincy options, as well as going quickly through the different trade options that you have available to yourself. I'll quickly go through some pros and cons, so stay tuned for it. Yes, guys. So you would have seen in the stream on Monday night that I have committed to fading Max Gawn, and that hasn't changed. So let's have a look at it right now. So this is the team with the substitutes for this buy round. Obviously, Nick Dacos on the bench and Heaney's on the bench, so we're going to be two premiums down. And the trades that I have made coming into this week are housed down to Klahisi. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm going early on him. I explained in the stream what in my previous video, also in my round 4 review, as to why I'm going early on Klahisi, and it's got a lot to do with the players who are going to be on the bubble next week, specifically people like Comben, like Graham, potentially a Georgiades as well. So of those 3, you would imagine probably at least 2 of them are going to be locks. And at this stage, it's looking like it's going to be Graham and it's going to be Comben. So I don't want to have to force a boost next week if I have to, in order to do a triple downgrade. And for that reason, I am going to go a bit early on Klahisi, who just looks like he's going to have rock solid job security. He absolutely killed it. Why would Dimmer drop him after that? And I'm trading out Grundy to get Marshall. Grundy was someone that we were hopeful. Let's be realistic. We were hopeful that Grundy was going to be a keeper for us. But I'm pretty sure most of us were of the understanding that he was going to be a placeholder until we can get someone else. And Rowan Marshall, I spoke about earlier in the season. In the preseason, I had big raps for Rowan as well as Tim English. And I think these guys are going to be able to play out the season really, really well. I know there were obviously some comments in relation to Grundy being, Grundy in relation to Marshall being really tired, and they're going to name, Campbell. But bro, they have not named Campbell at all since round 23 of 2022. It just simply hasn't happened. The guy is a journeyman. He's a bit similar to Naismith. He's someone who's traveled around from club to club, and he's hardly seeing any game time. So I don't really think that the risk of, Campbell coming in is particularly high. I just don't think it is. I think Rowan Marshall, all of the stats would have suggested that Rowan Marshall is actually killing it in terms of the time that he's spending on the ground, in terms of the number of ruck contests that he's getting to. I'm really thinking that Rowan Marshall is going to be a wonderful selection. And I think he's going to be probably maybe R2. I know it's a big call. I'm tipping English to be R1 for the season, and I'm tipping my Rowan Marshall to be R2 because that's what I think is going to end up happening. I think over the course of the season, it's going to be a bit hard for Big Gawny. I know it's going to be a really tough watch for me on Thursday night playing against the Lions. They are his absolute bunny team. He went 215 on them. And I know I'm taking the hard route. I could afford going Marshall to Max. I really could. But I'm sticking to my guns and I'm going Marshall over Maxi. And because if you think about it, Gawn's got the bye next week. And if you were to trade in Gawn this week, say he does go 200, right? Say Gawn does go 200. So he goes 200 this week, and then he goes 0 next week. That's an average of 100 over the course of these 2 weeks. Whereas Big Rowan Marshall, I reckon he's going to go more than 100 both weeks whilst being cheaper. So at least in the short term, I am going to get more points. Plus, I'm not going to be copying zeros this week and next week. So if you're holding a Grundy, you're going to cop a 0 there. And then if you are going to trade in a Gawn, you're going to cop a 0 next week. So I'm thinking that going with these two guys who I'd flagged early in the preseason as probably the top two ruckmen is going to be my setup going into this year. And for that, I think it's worth it. I already used 3 boosts. I don't want to use a 4th one. I definitely want to keep my boosts for trading in the uber premiums, the uber premium midfielders, the ones who are scoring absolutely everything. And the ones that are scoring everything are your Petrarcas and your Merits. These two are the absolute top dogs that don't look like they're going to relent any time soon. So those are the 2 guys that I've got in my trade, in my sights. I don't want to blow it. I definitely want to keep a hold of my boosts. The reason why Howes is going out is because that he's had a really low score. I know I could hold on to him and wait for that 20 score to drop out of his system, but the problem is he has to buy next week, and he's not going to make any money for me there either. So I'm just going to take the confirmed money. He's made us about 100k from his starting point, and that to me I think is okay. So Howes can go out, and I get Clahisi in, and then I can still hold on to a Massimo who still has a lowish break even of 40 in the 40s. And I can still hold on to McKercher, who also has a break even in the 40s. And if neither of these guys can bounce back, now Massimo was stuck on the bench for about over 20 minutes. He was stuck on the bench in the last quarter. They were down to the last 3 rotations in the last quarter. And unfortunately, Massimo is just not in their best 18. He is just a role player. And seeing that the rotations were getting the interchange numbers were getting really low, unfortunately, Massimo had to sit out. So for him to be on a 63 whilst missing out on all that game time in the clutch, very important last quarter, I think that he definitely still is capable of scoring more than this, and he should hopefully give us a good bounce back game this week, can re-kickstart that cash gen. If not, well, then he would have made us a bit more money, hopefully scoring over that 40 mark score, make us a bit more money, and then he can be in my trade plans. The great thing about Graham, he's a defensive mid as well. So that's what I'm looking at, holding on to Mass for another week, holding on to McKercher for another week that I'm seeing a lot of people thinking about trading out. And in doing these trades, I think I've got a very decent team whilst getting in early on some cash generation, getting ahead of the curve, waiting for next week, as well as holding on to some potential fattened up players who I can look to upgrade in the coming weeks. And so with this, I think I've got R1, R2. You could think that I'm being in denial here in trying to fade Max Gawn, and Max Gawn's actually going to pop off and tear me a new one. He probably will. He will have, no one has spike games like Maxi Gawn. He is the pinnacle of spike games. He is absolutely unbelievable. So for me, I'm not going to do Max Gawn, and I'm pretty sure Big J is going to come in and tear me an absolute new one for not having Max Gawn in my side.
Did someone say no Max Gawn? I don't know, Joe. Did you hear last time that he came in, Max Gawn smacked Brisbane, big 200 at the MCG, and, you know, he's doing all right for an old fella, 130.6 average. I understand what you mean, and it's one of the things that we'll talk about in the next episode about bringing players in and things like that, kind of having a guide on break-evens, but also like timing, right? Because a lot of these players that we're trying to bring into our teams are really, really set. They're really, really like, cool, do I get 2 extra weeks before a bye with the St Kilda player, or maybe with the Melbourne player, it's going to take me a bit longer, right? The early bye players add a real element to a lot of these Supercoach choices. And, you know, if you're not picking someone from GWS or Sydney, for fairness, that round 12 bye is probably the saving grace for a lot of people. So, yeah, you want to pick Ron Marshall, no worries. I think, and we'll go over my trades, hey, I might just keep Grundy for a little while and we'll see what happens there. So,
well, there you go. So that's a decision, because Grundy is someone who you can hold on to. His break-even isn't particularly low. And if you just look at it from a superficial basis, he's averaging over 100. But in reality, if you take out round 0, he didn't score us those points. He's really only been averaging us 94. Yeah. And he hasn't made us much money. Plus, he had a dream matchup last week against BJ Williams and didn't capitalize on that either. So to me, I think if there was a time to trade out Brody Grundy, for me, I think it is when I can avoid his 0 and get Rowan Marshall in, who I'm really bullish on, personally speaking. And because his points per minute is insane. I think he's got like a points per minute of 1.5 points per minute, which is ridiculously high. I think if you're over 1.1, then you're absolutely killing it. And Marshall, he might not be the best tap ruckman, but similar to an English, it's the work around the ground. And so if you do have a game where he is able to get hitouts to advantage, then that just is going to increase his scoring. So for me, I'm pretty bullish in doing the English to Marshall. I'm really considering having English as my VC this week. Obviously, I won't have Gawn, and that's where everyone's going to go. But English against Essendon could be an absolutely juicy proposition. We saw that, I mean, Essendon historically have been pretty restrictive against ruckman. We're the 7th most difficult team to score against if you're in the ruck. And then you look at Bontempelli with 13th, ranked 13th against them. And there's going to be no set of field either.
Well, that's it. I guess kind of for me, it's more a case of, well, I've got to make some other trades in my team. I feel like I'm down 1 or 2 players compared to some other people. And there's a couple of players who I want to bring into my side that if I don't bring them in this week, I might not be able to bring them in at all. Grundy's probably only 100K away from a Rowan Marshall, hopefully, in terms of price and that kind of thing. He's currently, what, 98K? So if I've got a 200K player, hey, look, 2 trades, that's it. Marshall's in my team, and English as well. So, yeah, you've kind of shown everyone what you're doing. Joe, do you want me to go through my team?
Absolutely. Your turn, mate.
Let's go. So this is my team so far for the week. And I really see there being a couple of holes in the side that I just need to fix. A couple of players who scorned my earth, as they say, have just like been the bane of my existence. And one of these players is Big Sam Berry that needs to go in the bin, Joe. So he is... Where's the go in the bin? Give me a sec.
Where's he going to go? He's going to go in the bin.
In the bin. That's going to be Sam Berry this week. Unfortunately, he's probably going to come out and score a 90 and then like reset his cash again just to spite me. But that's all right if that happens. So Berry's out. Oh, no, not Grundy. Sorry. Berry's out for me. Another player who's in a similar position that has effectively cost me 2 trades and 2 boosts, which is why I'm so far behind, is James Jordan, and he needs to go. He's made all the money he can make. If you check out his break-even, he's on the 78 break-even. So he's probably not going to make any more money at this point. And the problem with these Sydney players, I was speaking to some other people off air, and it's in consideration for a lot of people that are getting rid of Matt Roberts as well, is they miss out this week, and then next week they play. So in 3 weeks, you effectively get their next price increase. 1 week now, next week play, and then the week after, or at the end of next week. So, yeah, just something to think about for a lot of these players. Grundy in a little bit of position as well, but hopefully he's can work out all right for us. So those 2 are out. I did have a bit of a listen to what you were talking about with Massimo, and it's just a good way for me to get some money. I'm not going to jump on the Lloyd Meek train. I know a lot of people have been talking to you off air about it and, talking to myself about it as well. It's kind of the controversy and the talk at the moment. Hey, guys, let's get Lloyd Meek. I'm like, just stop, guys. Like, I've spent 4 trades effectively getting rid of James Jordan. It's going to cost me a similar thing to get Lloyd Meek in. Make some money, cool. And then Lloyd Meek shits the bed, and then it just doesn't work out. So it's not going to happen for me. You guys can do it. It's your teams, but Big J is saying no Lloyd Meek. It's not going to happen for me. So I'd rather upgrade and get a keeper than a guy who I effectively have to spend 2 trades to get in and out of my side because I've made, maybe 150K. And a trade effectively is worth 100K. So if you put that into perspective, cool, you made 100K on Lloyd Meek. Whatever. So this week, Massimo's going to go for me. It does make a bit of a hole in the back line, but I figure Roberts potentially can go back there. And then one of the guys who I'm going to bring into my team will go back there. So I should have 5 deep come round 7, 5 or 6, depending on what's happening with Zach Williams. Maybe Williams goes and turns into a midfielder in a couple of weeks. So I think player of the day is Big Clossy, because it sounds like Closey, but his name's Clossy because it sounds like closet. Hopefully, I don't think the scoring is going to be as high, but if he's playing mid, Hawthorn give up a lot of points to midfielders. So it was partly why I was thinking maybe I'll get Matt Rowell in there, and I think he's a fantastic choice. If you can do it, Matt Rowell is definitely a pick. I technically can do it. Maybe I'll have a bit of a think about it. But 126 break even, as you see here, he's due to lose some money unless he has a massive game. So that's a no for me right now. One player who has been the bane of my existence, Joe. I hate saying players. I hate players, but I hate players. Nick Martin.
No, you don't hate Nick Martin. Nick Martin's a good boy. Nick Martin.
I traded him out because he was shit. And then the second I traded him out, he watched our video and was like, Big J, stuff you. I'm going 130, 130. Now, like, he's almost impossible to get in. If you don't get him in this week, I think he's going to end up costing you too much. Especially when you look at a lot of these defenders, you're not picking him to be a midfielder, right? And if you have a look at a lot of the defenders at the moment, let's pull up the defenders. There's a lot of guys around the mark at the moment. So Lockie Whitfield's there. Jeremy McGovern's around a similar price as what Nick Martin should be next week. Jordan Ridley, obviously, we don't care about. But even like a Hayden Young and a Jordan Clark, like these are the guys that we should be bringing in over the next couple of weeks. So if Nick Martin ends up being around the similar price, we're getting someone a little bit cheaper at the moment. And as we've spoken about off air, Joe, just like the roles there, Brad Scott likes him. There's never been any negative talk. And, you know, as Essendon gets stronger, I think he's just going to get better, or at least more consistent. One of the big things that I would like to highlight with people and Nick Martin is last week, 43 touches, only a 133. This week, he only got like 29 touches and got a 133. So it's not hey, look, he needs 43 touches to get there. He's not Matt Crouch, who needs like 80 touches to make 100. Obviously, that's exaggerated, right? But not Matt Crouch from this year either. But that's always been the thought, like the talk about it. Oh, Tom Mitchell, great player, but he needs 35 touches to crack a ton. Well, this time...
It was against Port Adelaide, who are historically really good at restricting halfbacks as well.
Yeah. So Nick Martin, hopefully he can keep up the form. I think similar with him and a Hayden Young, they've kind of figured out their problems early on. So it is what it is. Nick Martin's in my team. Obviously, Dacos is not going to be in the mids at the moment. Someone who is going to be in the mids that I'm upset I didn't start, and he's in my side, and potentially it's going to burn me. So sorry, guys, if I've killed the pick, but Jack Steele's coming in there. Jack Steele's run at Marvel Stadium over the next little while is quite high. I think he plays almost every game at Marvel Stadium for a very long time. And he scores well at Marvel Stadium. I'm like, come along to Marvel Stadium. You'll be all right. Jack Steele's one who I think, similar to a Nick Martin, obviously I didn't start Jack Steele. And if you did, fantastic, because you've got a 126 average out of him. Like, congratulations to you guys. But if I don't get him in this week, he's got a super low break even coming off the 142. Like, if he hits his projected of a 126, which is bonkers. But if it does, he's basically unobtainable at that point. Are you not spending 3 trades to get Jack Steele into your team? So, yeah, that's what it's looking like for me. Grundy's definitely one that I look to trade out potentially next week. And that really comes down to what happens with Jack Carroll. Because if Jack Carroll gets kicked out, Sam Walsh comes back, Jack Carroll get moved around or kicked out, I can just go Jack Carroll to a Graham, Brodie Grundy up to a Ryan Marshall next week. And you're laughing. So, yeah, just something to kind of play around with ideas there. Obviously, as Joe says, Grundy might not be the best pick, but potentially I'll get another week's worth of scoring or 2 out of him. I think his next few opponents aren't terrible. And if it means I can hold him for a bit longer, then hold him for a bit longer, because I really want English in there. Marshall, to me, feels a little bit like budget English. And I just want to yell out English every time I watch a Dogs game, because everyone's got Pont, right? But not many people have got English. So it's always fun. And whenever he gets kickouts, I'll be like, hey, get a kick out. So, yeah, that's kind of my trades. What do you reckon?
He's done it once. He's not going to do it again, bro.
I know, but that's the meme. You got to do it. That's the meme. What do you reckon about my trades?
Yeah, no, I love it. I've already told you off air. They're great trades. It gets you up to 14 premiums, which actually is actually ahead of me, which is really good. I'm still on the 13 premiums. So obviously, as long as you're upgrading your team, which is what you're doing, you're either downgrading to a rookie or you're upgrading to a primo. And that's how you're supposed to be using your boosts. So you have those. I love it. Love those trades, mate.
Yeah, and I think like obviously Sexton, I think is higher ranked than Cadman, but Sexton's dead. Like you basically are trading him out next week. So we'll see what happens in terms of money and things like that. It might force me not to do the Grundy trade. I might use my last boost and finagle some things around. I wish I had some more money, but as Joe said in his part, right? Petrarca's next, Zach Merritt's next. You need those two guys. You need to somehow force them into your teams over the next couple of weeks if you can. Petrarca probably isn't as much of a must-have, but Zach Merritt. Every year, Joe, whole preseason, what did we say? Zach Merritt, round 6, 7.
Yep.
Got to get him
exactly
in.
right.
That's the thing. So, yeah, that is my trades for the week. What's up next?
Excellent. We'll talk about some captaincy options coming into this week. Obviously, you know, we're starting off with the Thursday night game. Everybody and their mums and their dogs and their stepsisters, perhaps. I don't know why those three in particular, but everyone's keen to see Max Gawn replicate what he did to the Brisbane Lions last year. And it was against the Big O. It wasn't like Darcy Fort or something. He really took Big O to the cleaners last year and scored 215. And so I would not be surprised if Max Gawn is without a doubt the single most VC'd option, and I am betting against that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be as good as what you're hoping, or not hoping is probably the big way to say it. Thursday night vice captains rarely work out. And you just have to be careful when you hit optimize as well, because it automatically puts the captain on Max Gawn. So if people aren't watching, Max Gawn shits the bed. Cool. Well, you lose out a bit on that captaincy score. So, yeah, just something to kind of look at and ponder at the moment. But, Joe, it's hard to go past the 215, mate. And Brisbane just aren't looking great.
And it's at the MCG, where they can't win.
The MCG. And we've spoken about how durable Max Gawn is. And, you know, he's probably not going to get, you know, lose his spot or anything going to happen there. So, yeah, it's hard to bet against the big man if you don't have him. It's probably the big thing.
He's got the bye next week, so he's probably going to go all out this week and then have a rest next week. This is going to be
intercepts like crazy. Max, go on, get in my team if you didn't have him.
It's going to be such a hard watch tomorrow night, bro. It's going to be so hard to watch. We're both tipping Melbourne for this one?
Yes. Yeah, I have.
Melbourne by...
I don't know. It just depends on Brisbane. Like, they bounced back against North Melbourne, but, you know, everyone bounces back against North Melbourne at the moment. Melbourne by 25 or something. Seems like a pretty fair 4 goals.
Yeah, 4 or 5 goals. Seems about right. Doggies v Essendon. You know all of the dogs, English, Bont and Libba. I think especially Libba. I think Libba could go bananas this week against us as well. So if you have Libba, congratulations. If you're thinking about
Channel Spills, who traded out Libba before his 130, and yeah, he scored like a 60 the week before, and then he got subbed, and I was like, oh, cool. I mean, I think it was a 92 the week before and got subbed, and then Spills traded him out, and then Libba went kabang, and then it was upset. So
he's going 120 at least this week. Yeah. He's going 120 this week. I'm sorry.
Especially for your injuries too. You've got a lot of injuries at the moment, Joe.
They just keep increasing. We're going to get Sam Durham back, but he's way too light to go up against any of these big dogs. So if you want to put the captaincy, because if you've got Max Gawn, you're obviously VCing him, and then you can really toss a coin if you want out of English or Bont. Like we sort of said, when it comes to the Bombers, we tend to give up a lot of points to the inside mids, and we tend to be restrictive against the rucks. So I guess for that reason, I'm more likely to go with the Bont captain, or in my case, vice captain, because I don't have Gawn. So Yeah, I think of English or Bont, it looks like Bont is the more ideal option.
Yeah. And just a side note on Nick Martin as well. I think we showed it on stream on Monday, maybe. The Dogs give up like an extra 60% against halfback flankers. So fantastic for you Nick Martin owners there.
Yeah, so Nick Martin's going to have an absolute ripping game. They are, though, really good at restricting mids. So they are the hardest team to score against if you're a midfielder. So for those of you looking to trade in Zach Merritt this week, I know his break even is pretty low considering his output at his price, but the Dogs are really good at restricting midfielder points. And this could, we're really hoping for a stinker. I know it's ridiculous as an Essendon fan to pray for a stinker from Zach Merritt, because if Zach Merritt has a stinker, we're losing by 100. Okay. You know what I mean? So, but regardless, we're tipping the Dogs here for sure.
No, it's all about Supercoach, mate. We don't have friends on the field, apart from your team obviously winning.
Apart from Kammer.
Going to win a final, but yeah, apart from Kammer, of course.
And Kammer.
Yeah.
Well, he's right up. He's in the next game.
Are you picking Dogs or Essendon?
Bruv.
Yeah.
They're going to win by at least 10 goals.
We didn't say, right? So you got to pick who you're going to pick.
They're winning by at least 10 goals. At least. They might kick 10 goals in a row.
Yep.
Giants v Saints. This is at Monica Oval. So this is a big ground.
Yeah, I'm hoping Lockie Whitfield has a big week. Obviously coming off a sub 100, and myself and George and a few other people did bring him in. Yep. So Saints love halfback flankers. It should be fun. Hoping for a big game from him. I don't know if there's anyone really Supercoach relevant in terms of actually like
Tom Green.
Yeah, potentially Tom Green, but I don't know. I get put off after Tom Green only gave me a 109 last week. I'm like, I think the pod picks are a little bit better. And if you don't have Heaney, obviously he's got the bye. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be really picking anyone from this game as like a must-have. Like Tom Green, potentially a VC option if you don't have a Gawn. But at that point, why would you not just pick Bontempelli? You know what I mean?
Key forward. They give up points to GWS key forwards, mate. Do you still have Hogan?
So Cadman's going to have a good game. That's all I'm saying.
Yes! Yes!
Cadman's going to do well for us. He needs
more
to score
money.
Some more points. Only got a 50 last week. So
Meanwhile, the Giants, I'm pretty sure Jack Steele has a great record against the Giants. They give up points to Marshall. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Briggs and Marshall. I can still float the money. Like, I can do it. I was hoping to bring Comben in next week, but if I have to get Marshall, I have to get Marshall. So, yeah, just like if you've got Marshall, as Joe says, congratulations. You know, our friend from the channel Magic has definitely got Marshall as well. So, yeah, if I wasn't like three trades behind and just desperate not to keep Sam Berry, I could probably get Marshall in this week too.
Classic Sam Berry. Oh my goodness.
Next year, who are we tipping? Say Big J, no Sam Berry. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Who are we tipping for this one?
Giants, 100%. They're first on the ladder. They're going to dominate. They're playing at home. St Kilda are in a bit of trouble, and yeah, Giants going to say, hey, watch out. That's it.
Yeah, the Giants, I think even defensively are so good. Like Max King has to have a blinder, I think, in order to take some marks. They're a great defensive unit. Their midfield is great. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Giants for this one as well.
We might see Cadman versus Kammer this week, Joe. That'd be pretty cool. I think he's pinch eating in the ruck, and I think Cadman's doing the same thing as well.
Yes,
so,
that's true.
Kammer versus Cadman. Maybe he gives him a couple of extra points. You're in my team. Take this hit out. When you hit out to advantage, it's okay. I'm not advocating for that kind of thing. Just letting everyone
no game tampering here, Big J. Kammer is a man of integrity. All right, we then get to Carlton hosting the Crows at Adelaide Oval. Really no one that is captaincy or vice captaincy relevant in this game. I mean, Carlton.
If you had like a Carrie Mackay and you were like keen to play him, He wouldn't be such a bad pick, I think. Just Adelaide, yeah, it does look bad against key forwards, right? But Adelaide's key forwards are just shocking at the moment. This is like last year's stats, but like no Butts, no Duday, no anyone. Mark Keane, he's probably going to give away a few 50s and then extra points against the key forwards like he did last week. So yeah, Carlton are going to win. They're going to slap them, especially because I think Carlton have played a couple of games away from home as well. So to go back to Marvel Stadium like after Good Friday is a good thing for them. So yeah, I think like you have to bet on Carlton, and I think they're going to slap them. Colonel and Mackay, they don't have anyone who can stop them really.
And you're not going to. This is going to be a more interesting game, not from a captaincy standpoint, but to see if Sam Walsh comes back.
Yeah.
And seeing how that mix interacts with, with someone like a Jack Carroll that a lot of us have on our benches. This is going to be a really interesting game in a Supercoach perspective for that. Like, what does Jack Carroll's job security and cash generation looks like? And you wouldn't be ballsy enough, surely, to put the captaincy on a Dawson, for example, or a Laird, like against these guys. I mean, Carlton, what are they doing? They're pretty good against mids. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think ultimately this game's going to be Jack Carroll watch and Sam Walsh watch. But yeah, I think we're both tipping Carlton for this one.
Yeah, I've definitely picked Carlton. I think currently looking at it at the moment, only 3% have picked Adelaide, and they're all probably Adelaide fans. So yeah,
potentially. We then move to the next game. Suns hosting the Hawks, two pretty young teams. I think the Suns became very young when they had all those changes to the team sheets last week, and they brought in all these young kids. So, and hopefully they continue to perform well, like Klahisi, like Graham, like McAndrew.
Well, for our Supercoach teams, that's 100% what we run, right? If Graham becomes a must-have next week, that's really going to change a lot of things up. So, yeah, I've picked Gold Coast. I think they're going to slap them. Hawks are in a bit of bother at the moment, and their midfield's not great. I hope Lloyd Meek gets beat up by Wits, and it's just like, mate, that's it. Get in the bin.
Yep.
So Hawks give up a lot of points to their midfields and opposition rucks as well. So yeah, it's really tough. Like, look at that stats. Like, inside mids plus 69%. And
if you have Matt Rowell.
That's the big thing. Is if I didn't get stealing this week, Matt Rowell would be the one, because his run now is quite good. We'll see what happens.
If Flanders is still playing that half-back role, watch out.
Yep. And that's the big thing too. There's a lot of people will talk about break-evens and who to bring in our next episode. But yeah, a lot of people are saying, hey, I have to get Flanders now. You should have got him last week. You didn't. But low break-even, playing a team that gives up a lot of points. Cool. If he plays midfield, he's got plus 69%. If you give up the other ones, you're doing extra as well. So you just can't lose.
Win, baby. I'm also going with the Suns on that front as well. We then move to Port Adelaide hosting Freo.
Yep.
6 versus 7. Both teams doing really well. I think Freo definitely is surprising a lot of us. And it'll be two good midfields going head-to-head. Butters, Rosie, Horne-Francis, potentially Wines as well back this week against Brayshaw, Sarong, Young, Fife. It's going to be a great game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully Wines comes back. Two real powerhouse teams. Like, these guys look like to be playing finals, and probably not your traditional finalists, especially Freo. So, yeah, should be really, really good. Big thing for me is if Sean Darcy plays, how much does he play? And that could really affect, like, maybe not Soldo in your team, but Luke Jackson, what his scoring's like, and probably Freo's ability to win as well. I think coming off maybe some injuries, he might get rested or more time on the bench. But if he's passing down to Sarong and all these guys, Joe, I'm not sure what DFS talks about, like, deficiencies for either team. But
tough matchup for inside mids, according to this, for Port Adelaide. So tough matchup there. However, we saw Zach Merritt go bananas last week. So might not necessarily be the case. Rucks do well against Port Adelaide. They give up about 33%. So that's pretty good. Meanwhile, Freo give up.
There's a guy that you've got in your team that I'm looking at, and it's like, hey, he's gonna score big if you head over to General Defender. Who's a General Defender? That hopefully goes big against Freo this week.
Please, Dan Houston, please do it, bro.
Oh, mate, he needs it because he's dropping in price as well. So if you've got Dan Houston, probably don't want to captain him or vice captain, but hopefully you have a good week against their opposition.
Because every time, what's Luke Ryan's matchup? Oh, Luke Ryan, he's a half-backer. Yeah. Port Adelaide tend to be pretty good against the Luke Ryan distributor stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully we get some luck going our way. What do we reckon? Oh, wait. How do they do against mids again? What do we say? Freo. They give up points to inside mids. So potentially a Butters or a Rose could do okay.
I'm thinking for our fans of the channel who, a little bit more gutsy with Jason Horne-Francis, it might be a great week to get him obviously suspected that, he might get forward DPP, which would put him basically in keeper status at this point if he keeps up like 100 average, right? So, Horne-Francis might just be the ticket because Freo, as Joe's shown, give up a lot of points to midfielders. So, because I just don't think they've got someone that really runs with. Like William Drew does it for Freo. So he does it for Port Adelaide against Freo this week. But Freo don't really have anyone on the opposite side that will target as much. So
Hayden Young potentially. Hayden Young can play a defensive role.
Yeah, he tries, Joe. He tries.
Well, that's all you can do, I guess. So we're both going Port, yeah?
Yeah, big Port.
Okay. Sunday games. Your boys versus Geelong at GMHBA. So tough ask. And
I almost got asked to go to this game. I got people in my family who go for Geelong. I know it's sad. They said, Jeremy, when's Geelong playing next? And I was saved, Joe. I was saved that we're not going this week because they're currently busy. So that's made me happy. But North Melbourne are going to get slapped. They're going to.
So Big J,
guys,
if you look at his happiest.
If you look at the tipping,
Big J is at his happiest when he gets to avoid going to North Melbourne games.
When you become a North Melbourne fan, Joe, you sign this document that says you can support the club, but when you go to games, you just feel sad because we don't win and the players don't try. So, it makes it tough. I saw on the ESPN tipping that we use for work, 100% Geelong. AFL tipping, 1% North Melbourne. So there's some gutsy North Melbourne fans that think, hey, look, North's going to win. It's not going to happen. I'm very happy that Dempsey's in my team because he's probably going to go 300 this week. It's going to be fantastic to watch. So you got to pick Geelong. I don't know if there's anyone from this who is probably going to be like a must-have to watch. But imagine North Melbourne gives up points to everybody, right? Who does North Melbourne stop?
Brucks.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, Cherry's all right.
And guess who Meek plays? And guess who Meek plays after he plays Wits this week?
Yep, that's it.
Cherry.
That's it. We'll see what happens. But Jeremy Cameron, Hawkins are just gonna be like to the wolves this week. Really, all I can say is it's going to be a tough watch as a North fan. So
hopefully they're unselfish and they feed the ball to Dempsey a little bit.
Oh, of course, mate. After like 150 points, they just be like, yeah, no worries. He's the next player. So yeah, it's Geelong's going to win. It's going to be a weird week this week. It feels like we normally have a Sunday team, Joe, that you can throw a captaincy on. It feels like this week we don't really have one. Is that pretty fair to say? Like, you could probably do Sheasel because the ball's going to be in North Melbourne's back line. Like, if you've got no one else. But, like, after the first, 3 or 4 games, there goes your captain and your vice captain really this week.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I guess you could look at potentially Harvey Reid No. If you got Shy Bolton,
captain.
yeah. If you got Shy Bolton, bro, Shy Bolton, what's he going to do to West Coast, bro?
Well, what does Shy Bolton? Let's have a look. So midfielders against West Coast, plus 75. Yep, everyone does well against West Coast apparently. Inside mids maybe not as much, but wings, defenders, everybody. Yep.
Take your pick.
At least North Melbourne, we stop opposition rucks. West Coast is like, here's the goals, mate. Here you go. There's a goal, and you just run up and down the field.
The reason why inside mids don't do great against West Coast is because they just get blown away out of the middle, and it's just a goal
because the defenders just kick it forward, and that's it.
It's all just ping pong.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It's so good. But yeah, I think we're all tipping Richmond for this one.
Oh, 100%.
It's not too. Look at the odds: $3.41 to $1.32. Now, I'm not a gambling man.
Actually, to be honest, I have tipped all the home teams this week, so I have not gone Richmond. I have gone West Coast, just for something different. Yeah, I will see. I think maybe it's the one game West Coast might actually try. West Coast have been trying.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the time they get the one win and they end up off the bottom of the ladder. Richmond seem to kind of just give away random games to players, so potentially it happens. Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm probably not going to win the tips this week, but that's all right. I'll throw away a game. I think I've got all the other ones right, so yeah.
You know what? Without Bolter and without Lynch, and they're relying on Mikel Tilefau.
Well, that's what I thought. Brass is going to give him a bath, so they don't really have key forwards to fight. Yeah, it'll be a ground game. Hopefully, Elliot Yeo goes big. I think Harley Reid's going to have a good game as well. So, yeah, that's kind of why
I'm tipping West Coast. I'm tipping West Coast as well.
Done.
And at home, they're an entirely different species. They're not even eagles. They're aliens when they're at home. It's just.
I just figure they're actually going to try. That's probably the big thing for me.
Wow, all the home games this week, crazy. Yep. And on that note, guys, that was our final trades coming into this week, our VC and C options. And we went through all of the games, all of our tips, what we think is going to happen, as well as talking about all the other vice captain and captaincy options out there. So if you liked what you had to see from us today, drop us a like. And if you're new, a subscription would greatly help the growth of our channel.
Guys, it's only round 5, and a lot of us spent a lot of trades already, but as long as your team's getting better, take into account all the favorable matchups. Take into account bye rounds, as Joe said, with Marshall versus Gawn. Don't worry too much, as long as you're having fun. And pick those players you want to see. I hate looking at Nick Martin and saying, I don't have you in my team. That's why I've got Nick Martin in there as well. So if you've got someone like that in your team, that's okay. Chuck them in there.
100%, guys, and make sure you catch us live tomorrow for the drive home at 5:30. We also go live every Monday at 7:30 if you weren't aware of that. So make sure you hit that notification bell as well to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the videos and streams that we have on a regular basis.
We've got a few more videos coming out today, guys, because here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so you guys don't have to.